Karoline Leavitt has set the internet ablaze with a bold revelation that few saw coming. In a moment that's now making waves across social media, Leavitt came forward with shocking claims that directly implicate Oprah Winfrey in what she describes as a carefully curated facade. With documents, recordings, and first-hand accounts, Leavitt isn't just raising questions, she's presenting evidence that could rewrite how the public views one of America's most beloved media figures. The explosive moment unfolded during a high-profile interview where Leavitt laid out her case piece by piece. She didn't rely on vague accusations or speculative theories. Instead, she walked the audience through a series of interconnected events and behind-the-scenes moves that, according to her, reveal Oprah's double game, championing justice in public while quietly operating with a very different set of motives in private. The core of Leavitt's exposé centers around Oprah's involvement with elite circles and private dealings that have long escaped public scrutiny. Using internal emails, old footage, and testimonies from people once within Oprah's trusted circle, Leavitt painted a picture that suggests a disconnect between Oprah's public persona and her off-camera influence. According to Leavitt, the evidence shows Oprah using her media power not just for storytelling, but for shaping narratives that benefit her personal interests, and in some cases, silencing voices that dared to challenge them. Social media erupted within minutes. Hashtags like Oprah canceled and Maori Leavitt exposes began trending across platforms as clips of the exposé circulated with millions of views. What makes the revelation even more jarring is the sheer weight Oprah's name carries. For decades, she's been hailed as a symbol of inspiration and empowerment. Leavitt's claims have thrown that image into sharp question. What shocked viewers most wasn't just the claims themselves, but the calm confidence with which Leavitt delivered them. She didn't flinch, didn't hedge, and most importantly, she didn't make vague insinuations. She provided timestamps, dates, and sources. In one particularly damning segment, she played a never-before-heard recording of a closed-door conversation, suggesting Oprah may have knowingly suppressed certain stories to maintain her brand's integrity while protecting powerful allies. The response from Oprah's camp has been swift but vague, issuing a short statement denying any wrongdoing and accusing Leavitt of orchestrating a smear campaign. But many feel the statement lacks substance and, crucially, fails to address the specific evidence presented. This moment marks a potentially historic shift. Karoline Leavitt isn't just confronting a celebrity, she's taking on a cultural institution. Whether the broader media chooses to follow her lead or ignore the firestorm remains to be seen. But one thing is clear: the curtain has been pulled back, and millions are now questioning what and who they've trusted for years. As the fallout intensifies, questions are multiplying by the hour. If what Karoline Leavitt alleges is true, what else has been hidden behind the carefully crafted legacy of Oprah Winfrey? For decades, Oprah has been more than just a talk show host. She has been a cultural force, a tastemaker, and a gatekeeper. But Leavitt's exposé challenges that image head-on, suggesting that the same power Oprah used to lift voices may have also been used to silence others. Perhaps most unsettling is the claim that Oprah has allegedly worked behind the scenes to control media narratives in ways that serve a select few. Leavitt's documents reportedly link Oprah to undisclosed partnerships, coordinated media blackouts, and strategic endorsements that appear less about empowerment and more about influence. If verified, these revelations could spark a wider reckoning, not just for Oprah, but for the media institutions that helped elevate her without asking the tough questions. The public reaction is already shifting from shock to anger. Influencers, commentators, and even some former allies have begun to speak out, some cautiously distancing themselves, others demanding accountability. Petitions have launched, calls for boycotts are spreading, and the ripple effect is touching every corner of the entertainment and media landscape. For many, this isn't just about Oprah. It's about trust. Trust in personalities and platforms and brands that have shaped public opinion for generations. Still, amid the uproar, there are defenders. Some argue that Leavitt is pursuing a political vendetta, weaponizing selective information to smear a figure who has done immense good. They point to Oprah's philanthropic work, her history of advocacy, and the lives she's changed through her platform. But Leavitt anticipated these defenses and addressed them directly. She acknowledged Oprah's contributions but insisted that good deeds don't erase dark truths. According to Leavitt, this is not about tearing someone down. It's about exposing a pattern of manipulation that the public has the right to know. This isn't personal, she stated. It's about accountability. You don't get to shape the national conversation for decades and expect to avoid scrutiny forever. What comes next could be unprecedented. Congressional figures have reportedly expressed interest in reviewing the claims. Media watchdogs are already investigating the legitimacy of Leavitt's materials. And fans, once loyal and unwavering, are beginning to reconsider what they thought they knew. In a culture driven by image, perception is power, and Karoline Leavitt just challenged one of the most carefully protected images in modern American history. Whether Oprah survives this storm with her legacy intact will depend not only on her response but on how deeply the truth runs behind Leavitt's chilling claims. One thing is certain: the days of untouchable celebrity may finally be coming to an end. As momentum builds, Karoline Leavitt shows no signs of backing down. In fact, she has promised that what the public has seen so far is just the beginning. During a live stream following the initial expose, Leavitt hinted at even more explosive material set to be released in the coming days. According to her, this includes emails, financial records, and private correspondences that allegedly point to a broader network of influence and protection surrounding Oprah, one that extends into politics, media, and corporate boardrooms. This isn't just a media controversy anymore. It's evolving into a national conversation about power, image, and the cost of unchallenged influence. What Leavitt has done is crack open a narrative that many considered untouchable. Oprah wasn't just admired, she was revered. Her rise from poverty to billionaire icon has inspired millions. Her book club shaped bestseller lists. Her endorsements could launch careers. But now that empire of goodwill is facing questions it may not be ready to answer. The most loyal fans, many of whom grew up watching Oprah's show, are finding themselves in an emotional tug-of-war. They want to believe in the legacy they trusted, but the specificity and weight of Leavitt's evidence is difficult to dismiss. Screenshots of calendar meetings, internal memos discussing containment strategies, and testimony from former staffers are being circulated and dissected across forums, podcasts, and nightly news panels, and the pressure is mounting on mainstream media outlets, many of which have had long-standing ties with Oprah. Critics are demanding that these organizations put personal relationships aside and begin reporting objectively. So far, the response has been tepid. Most have cautiously acknowledged the controversy without delving into the full scope of Leavitt's claims. But independent journalists and digital media figures have seized the moment, driving a parallel narrative that is gaining traction with an audience tired of curated truths. Meanwhile, Oprah herself has remained largely silent. Aside from her initial legal team's brief dismissal of the claims, she has not issued a personal statement. For someone known for her powerful voice and carefully measured public responses, the silence is only deepening suspicion. Every day that goes by without a full rebuttal adds fuel to the belief that there may be more to the story. Leavitt, for her part, has framed this as a cultural wake-up call. She's not just targeting Oprah, she's targeting the system that allowed one woman to hold so much sway without meaningful checks. "This is bigger than Oprah," she said in her follow-up interview. "It's about who controls the conversation in America and who gets left out of it. Whether this movement results in real consequences or fades into the chaos of the media cycle remains to be seen. But one fact is undeniable. Karoline Leavitt has pierced the illusion. And now, millions are watching, waiting, and questioning everything they thought they knew about one of the most iconic figures of the 21st century. As the days pass and pressure mounts, what once seemed unthinkable is now playing out in real time. Oprah Winfrey's public image is unraveling, and Karoline Leavitt is at the center of the storm. The initial expose, now widely referred to as the Leavitt Files, has taken on a life of its own. Independent analysts, former insiders, and even media ethicists are beginning to weigh in, and the consensus is becoming harder to ignore. This is no longer just speculation. It's a serious credibility crisis. Leavitt has since released a second wave of documentation, among them redacted financial trails linking Oprah's charitable foundations to consulting firms involved in political lobbying, private messages between media executives discussing shielding O from the fallout, and recorded testimony from a former assistant who claimed under oath that editorial decisions on Oprah's media platforms were sometimes influenced by undisclosed business interests. These revelations are being dissected with forensic intensity by both amateur sleuths and seasoned journalists, and the findings continue to cast a long shadow over Oprah's brand. The cultural response is shifting from disbelief to a sobering sense of betrayal. Celebrities once quick to align themselves with Oprah's name are now noticeably silent, while others have begun issuing vague public statements about accountability and transparency in media. It's a subtle but telling shift, one that suggests even within Hollywood the tide is turning. Behind the scenes, the damage control machine appears to be in full motion. Anonymous sources have leaked that PR consultants and crisis management firms have been enlisted to steer Oprah's narrative back on course. But so far, no full public appearance, no exclusive interview, and no heartfelt video message has surfaced. The absence is deafening. For someone who built an empire on connection and conversation, the silence is beginning to sound like an admission. Meanwhile, Karoline Leavitt's influence is growing. What began as a controversial exposé has turned her into a lightning rod, a symbol for a growing movement of Americans disillusioned with media elites and unaccountable power. Her followers span political lines, united less by ideology and more by a demand for truth. Her investigation, once dismissed as attention-seeking, is now being praised as one of the boldest acts of media defiance in recent memory. But Leavitt isn't finished. She has promised a final phase, a culmination of all the evidence, timelines, and connections, presented in a comprehensive dossier to be shared with the public and submitted to oversight committees. She says the point isn't vengeance, but clarity. People have the right to know who's shaping their culture, she stated, and they have a right to decide whether those people deserve that power. The world is watching not just to see how Oprah will respond, but to see what this moment says about accountability in the age of influence. The veil of invincibility has been torn, and now, no celebrity, no matter how iconic, is immune to the truth when it's backed by proof, delivered without fear and demanded by the people. As the storm surrounding Oprah Winfrey grows darker and more complex, Karoline Leavitt is emerging not just as a whistleblower, but as a symbol of a cultural turning point. Her third installment of evidence, released in a primetime live stream that drew millions of viewers, has further intensified the scrutiny. This phase of her exposé zeroed in on what she described as the machinery behind the myth, a network of gatekeepers, corporate backers, and silent collaborators who allegedly helped Oprah maintain her unchallenged influence for decades. Among the most jarring revelations was a set of communications between senior executives at multiple news outlets discussing coordinated coverage, strategies that appeared designed to protect Oprah's image. In one email chain, executives debated how to downplay unfavorable associations and shield O's legacy from unnecessary heat. If authentic, these messages suggest that major media players weren't just passively admiring Oprah, they were actively insulating her from scrutiny. Leavitt also highlighted financial entanglements that raise serious ethical questions. One case involved a philanthropic initiative Oprah promoted heavily on her platforms, an initiative that, according to tax filings and bank documents Leavitt presented, funneled a substantial portion of donations to consulting firms owned by longtime associates. None of this was disclosed to the public at the time. The optics and the implications are damning. The fallout has begun to affect institutions that once proudly bore Oprah's name. Several universities and nonprofits have quietly scrubbed her name from advisory boards and public materials. A well-known publishing house has reportedly postponed a planned Oprah-backed release, One major daytime TV network is said to be reevaluating syndication deals involving past Oprah-produced content. While none of these organizations have issued direct statements, the pattern is unmistakable. Brands are distancing themselves. Still, a fierce debate rages on. Some argue that Leavitt's investigation is driven by ideology and vengeance. They claim she is using selective data and exploiting the public's growing distrust in legacy media to score points. But that argument is losing steam in the face of hard documentation, dates, and unedited files that continue to pass third-party verification. Leavitt has made most of her materials publicly available, urging viewers to fact-check everything, a move that's only boosted her credibility. Oprah's team has remained in lockdown. Legal experts suggest the silence may be strategic, either because a legal response is being prepared or because more damaging leaks are anticipated. But with few, every day that passes, public opinion seems to be hardening. What was once skepticism is now concern. What was once concern is becoming outrage. In a country already on edge over media trust, cultural manipulation, and elite immunity, this saga has hit a nerve. Leavitt's bold unraveling of Oprah's untouchable persona has forced a national reckoning, not just about one woman, but about how influence operates in America. We are watching the collapse of an image once thought unshakable, and whether Oprah rises to defend herself or fades into silence, the damage is done. Karoline Leavitt has pulled the curtain back, and what lies behind it has changed the conversation, for good. The story that once revolved around one explosive expose has now evolved into something far larger, a reckoning that's challenging not only Oprah's legacy, but the structure of celebrity worship itself. Karoline Leavitt's investigation has triggered a ripple effect across industries that, for years, operated under the illusion of untouchable influence. With each release, Leavitt peels back another layer, exposing how power, money, and media have collided behind the scenes to maintain a carefully engineered public illusion. In her most recent update, Leavitt shifted the spotlight to Oprah's philanthropic empire, once hailed as a model for celebrity-driven activism. But the numbers Leavitt presented tell a different story. She uncovered instances where significant portions of funds raised for charitable causes were funneled through opaque shell organizations, some of which were registered offshore. She also revealed discrepancies between reported donations and actual disbursements, claims backed by audits and filings that show glaring gaps. One charity in particular, which Oprah had publicly championed as life-changing for underprivileged girls, was shown to have spent less than 15% of its budget on its stated mission, with the remainder going to consulting, marketing, and executive bonuses. This revelation has rattled the philanthropic world. Donors are demanding clarity. Watchdog organizations are beginning formal investigations, and Oprah's once unquestioned credibility as a philanthropic leader is now under a microscope. For someone who built her empire on trust, empathy, and transparency, these revelations strike at the heart of everything she claimed to represent. More than just numbers and names, what Leavitt has revealed is a pattern, an ecosystem that allowed a global icon to operate with impunity, protected not by facts or results, but by narrative control and public reverence. The media, corporate sponsors, political allies, none dared to challenge the myth. Until now. Leavitt's rising popularity reflects the public's hunger for real accountability. She's not a media darling. She's not backed by corporations. She's an outsider willing to say the quiet part out loud, and to prove it. In her own words, this isn't about canceling anyone. It's about finally telling the truth, no matter how uncomfortable it makes people. As for Oprah, her silence has now transformed from a calculated strategy into a glaring absence. The longer she waits, the more people begin to believe she has no answer. Her brand, built over decades, is being dismantled not by scandal alone, but by the weight of unanswered questions. What we're witnessing isn't just the potential fall of a cultural titan. We're witnessing a deeper shift, the collapse of the idea that celebrity, success, or goodwill exempts anyone from scrutiny. Leavitt has redrawn the lines of public accountability. She has dared to take aim at an institution, not just a person, and in doing so, she's changed the game, forever. As the final chapter of this unfolding saga arrives, Karoline Leavitt delivers what she calls the conclusion, but not the end. In a highly anticipated press event streamed live to millions, she unveiled the full archive of her investigation, a meticulously compiled digital vault containing documents, timelines, recordings, and correspondence. Each piece of evidence was organized, sourced, and made publicly accessible for independent review. There were no dramatic monologues, no theatrics, just facts, and a simple statement. This is yours now. Do with it what they never expected. You, think for yourself. The files confirmed and expanded on what many had feared. Not only had Oprah's empire used its cultural capital to shape narratives, it had also allegedly leaned on intimidation tactics to silence dissent, from gag orders, buried in NDAs, to the quiet blacklisting of industry figures who stepped out of line. One particularly damning section detailed efforts to suppress whistleblowers from within her organizations, individuals who had tried to raise red flags about financial mismanagement or unethical partnerships, but were quickly silenced with legal threats or severance payouts tied to lifelong silence clauses. In the wake of the final release, the impact has been immediate and irreversible. Multiple media outlets, once hesitant to even mention the story, have now launched internal reviews of their Oprah-related coverage. A handful of celebrities who built parts of their careers on Oprah's platform have released carefully worded statements expressing deep concern and pledging support for transparency. One prominent daytime host has even resigned from her production company's board, citing ethical discomfort after reviewing Leavitt's archive. The corporate world has responded just as swiftly. Sponsorship deals, partnerships, and honorary roles are being pulled or quietly renegotiated. A well-known tech firm that recently signed a content distribution deal with Oprah's network announced it would pause all campaigns pending a third-party ethics review. Universities that once hailed her as a philanthropic role model are re-evaluating honorary degrees. The ripple effect continues, and yet Oprah herself remains silent. Aside from a short legal rebuttal disputing the context of certain claims, there has been no in-depth response, no interview, no live appearance. For someone whose brand was built on dialogue and emotional truth, the absence of that trademark voice is, in itself, a powerful message. It suggests either that there is no viable defense, or that the risk of speaking is greater than the cost of retreat. Karoline Leavitt, meanwhile, has stepped back from the spotlight. In her closing remarks, she made it clear that her goal was never fame or retribution. "I didn't do this to go viral," she said. "I did this because the truth matters, even when it's about someone we love, especially then." And that is where this story ends. Not with fireworks, not with courtroom drama or public takedowns, but with a quiet shift in the collective consciousness. A shift that says no one is beyond accountability, no legacy is immune to truth, and no image, no matter how polished, is above question. Oprah may or may not ever return to answer what's been laid bare. But the spell has been broken. The pedestal is no longer untouchable. And a new standard has been set, one where truth speaks louder than fame. That's the real legacy of Karoline Leavitt's expose.